Hey, you're tuned in to Live at 5. And before we jump into today's guest, I just want to remind you that this show is only possible because of the generosity and support of amazing people like you. Continue to support us by subscribing to this YouTube channel, clicking the link to donations and merchandise in the bio below, and by spreading the word about our shows. Thanks again, and enjoy. Hello there. We are live at 5, and we hope if you're in London, that you're enjoying the sunny weather from your home or out on your day's exercise. We're joined by our producer Darcy O'Connor, all the way from Clapton. How are you, Darcy?
I'm doing well. I'm not actually from Clapton. You could probably tell from my accent.
I think that's a pretty authentic Clapton accent that you have, actually.
All right then, Governor.
What did you do for your exercise today?
I haven't done my exercise yet, but
Slacker.
I have this show to produce. It's either this gets unfit or I get unfit. That's the choice. No, I got some resistance bands, which if anyone know, they're like these like rubber band things, and they're sort of like a substitute for weight because the more that you pull them, the more tension there is. So it's a good alternative if you can't go to the gym, and you can take it down to the park and the cops won't arrest you. So that helps.
These are health tips with Darcy O'Connor every day at 5 o'clock. You know what resistance bands always remind me of is the Goonies.
The Goonies, why?
The jock guy has a resistance band and he's always playing with it.
Oh yeah.
And then the truffle shuffle happens, and it's just one 80s classic moment after another.
That movie never touched down in Australia, really, or at least for my generation. I think I'm a little bit further behind you, but
well, it's pretty big in Clapton, so you should probably get a copy on VHS. We're gonna jump straight into some music for you this afternoon before we introduce our special guest, and this is an original track from Kansas Smitty's that you'll recognize from our, I believe it's Broadway 2018 album. It's called Cranes. This is Cranes live at Ronnie Scott's. and we're back live at 5. That was Cranes, featuring Will Cleesby on drums, Ferg Ireland on bass, Dave Archer on guitar, and Joe Webb wearing the finest suit known to man.
That is a ridiculous suit. Did he get fined for wearing that in public?
Well, I'll tell you a funny story about that suit. He was wearing that suit one time. We were getting ready for a gig at the bar, and we were going to get in a cab and go down to the vaults. And he was wearing that suit on Broadway. And the guy stopped me and said, "That is the ugliest suit I've ever seen." Right? And he stopped me and he said, "Tell your friend that is the ugliest suit I've ever." And I laughed because I thought he was joking. And he was actually, I've never seen someone so offended at a piece
by
of clothing.
something someone else was wearing.
Yeah, I thought, wow, that is mean. So anyway, I said, "You don't look good either, buddy." Yeah, he ran away with his tail between his legs. Yeah, take that. Anyway, all that being said, I want to introduce our guest for this evening, Mr. Nick Lewis, all the way from Finsbury Park. How are you, Nick?
How you doing, Giacomo? Honored to be on the Live at 5 series.
Live at 5, here with you tonight. This is Nick Lewis. Nick, you are probably my first friend in London. I met you, I think, 9 years ago.
Wow, was it 9 years?
Yeah,
unbelievable.
We've only been friends for 6 of those years because we had a brief pause.
It was a rocky start, wasn't it? Yeah.
But Nick is actually a mutual friend with a good friend of mine from Saratoga, and Will Levith.
Shout out Will Levith. Yes.
Yeah. Will, when I moved to London, he said, "Oh, you have to meet up with my friend Nick, who works at Ronnie Scott's. You guys will really hit it off." And we did, I think. And over the years, we've actually managed to work on a fair number of projects together. But when I met you, what were you? Because in Ronnie's, you've kind of progressed throughout the ranks. So what did you start as? How did you get involved with that place?
Well, I started at the end of 2005, and I started as a receptionist. Actually, the club had just been sold by the owner, Pete King, who was the business partner of Ronnie Scott. And he'd sold it to a lady called Sally Green. So they were in the process of changing over the management and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, long story short, I went in for an interview and they gave me this reception job. I think I was the first person to get a job that wasn't in the sort of inner family.
Wow.
For years, because I think until then it was all very much, you got to be in the family, kind of Sicilian style, So I think I was treated with a lot of suspicion, like, who is this young kid? I mean, I was 24 when I started, so yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Right. Started as a receptionist, and then, sort of unbeknownst, it wasn't ever a sort of constant strategy, but it was just like, if someone asks you to do something new, why don't you just take that chance and roll with it, and you might learn something. So over the years, I took on pretty much all the different behind the scenes functions at a time, and learned up a sort of skill set on the job, I suppose. Sort of how to do marketing, how to do websites, and how to sell tickets, and how to put on concerts, and maybe get involved in the promotion and suggesting artists to come and play. And because you build up, even if you're not a huge jazz aficionado, by virtue of you being there for so long, you're going to build up. You're going to have your 10,000 hours.
Right. Right.
Well, if you've got a modicum of curiosity, you're going to build up a knowledge base.
Yeah. I mean, that was a question I wanted to ask you. Is did you come from a jazz background? Were you into jazz before you landed at Ronnie's?
Well, my dad raised me with jazz pretty heavy on the rotation in the car and at home and stuff. So it was a constant rotation of like jazz. So like Miles Davis, Louis Armstrong, Coltrane, all the greats basically. Oscar Peterson, and the Beatles and Kate Bush and this 80s new wave band called They Might Be Giants. So I don't know if you've ever heard of them. That was my kind of absorbing
musical foundation. So you
osmosis.
You didn't go down Frith Street and apply to every bar. You went to Ronnie Scott's.
No. I mean, I chose. So just to back up, a year before that, I finished university. I did my degree up in Scotland, in Edinburgh, great town, and then I was a jobbing musician for a year. I wasn't playing much jazz. I was playing more kind of jazz, funk, blues, around a blues jam session, rock music. I wasn't, to be honest, I realized my limitations pretty quickly, and the gigs that I was getting as a jobbing musician were not the most fulfilling artistically, and there's almost an inverse relationship between the gigs that pay lots of money are not very fulfilling, and the gigs that don't pay are the ones that you really want to play, but after a year of that, I was like, okay, there's got to be another way to stay in music, because that's a huge passion of mine. But how to sort of pivot, to use a common a trendy word. How do you pivot and stay in that world, but maybe contribute towards putting on music another way? So that was it. I went to see a gig actually with another mutual friend of ours, Poppy. I went to see Leanne Carroll. I went to see Leanne Carroll there in 2005, and I sat there in the front. We got there at doors opening time because we were huge fans of Leanne Carroll, and we sat in the front row. And I remember at the time just watching that gig and going, "Oh my God, this place is the best place in the world. Why not apply here?" So I did. And the rest is history.
The rest is history. Amazing. So you kind of, I should remind people that you're now you're the operations manager of Ronnie Scott. So you kind of, you oversee a lot of, things that go on in the club, and you oversee a lot of things that go on outside of the club. Like you promoted us at Ali Pali for this past London Jazz Fest, and you've promoted Ezra Collective at Islington Assembly Hall, and various things around James Taylor Quartet at Ali Pali. But you kind of alluded to before, when you started at Ronnie's, that there was kind of a changing of the guard at that place. And I never actually saw Ronnie's before Pete King had sold it, but you kind of you said that there was a big kind of culture change there. And when we were speaking earlier today, you said that one of the kind of definitive moments of that was a clip that we have here of Jeff Beck playing just a couple of seconds. But do you want to kind of prep us with what that was like, or what happened there?
Yeah, well, I mean, so the club, so I started, and then 6 months later, the club closed for refurbishment. So the new owners decided to give the place a long overdue makeover. So they closed for 3 months, then they reopened in the middle of summer of 2006. And for the next 2 years, I won't sugarcoat it, I had 8 different bosses. And there was a constant roll call, and nothing quite clicked for 2 years.
Right.
And I'm sure the owners wouldn't mind me saying that, because it was just, it's a very delicate thing, and Ronnie Scott's is it has a high. What am I trying to say? A lot of people care deeply about the place. It's more than just a club.
Yeah.
So it was not quite clicking, the management culture, and some of the bookings weren't quite on point and stuff. Anyway, long story short, round about the end of 2008, early 2009 is when a management team started clicking, and it started to go back more towards the music first, which is, obvious. You and me sitting here as enthusiasts go, yeah, duh.
Yeah.
Put the music first, everything else comes, right? But I think this clip that we're about to see is from a week at the club, and a very difficult week from an admin kind of technical point of view, but from a musical point of view, I think it was an absolute triumph. And for me, it was the start of the club starting to get back its world-class reputation for putting on, the best jazz and jazz-related music from around the world. And Jeff Beck, he remains to this day one of the great artists. in any genre. But yeah, phenomenal guitarist.
I want to ask you about that after as well, because just as a talking point. But Darce, can we play just 10, 15 seconds of that Jeff Beck? So that's Jeff Beck live at Ronnie Scott's in 2005, I believe, right, Nick?
No, that was 2008.
Oh, 2008.
End of 2008.
So it really took a minute to kind of settle in on the new rhythm, the new routine.
Yeah, big time. Okay. My screen's gone completely blank, by the way. But
oh, we can see you.
Oh, can you?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I wanted to ask you about Jeff Beck, because he's kind of an interesting. He's like a British icon, right? And where does because I grew up with if you wanted to talk about fusion guitarists, I grew up with Mike Stern and John McLaughlin and various other people, Lee Ritenour, those kinds of people. What makes Jeff Beck so special, and how is he tied to why was that such a special gig for Ronnie's?
Well, I don't think we'd have had anyone of that stature worldwide in the new regime. We'd had some of the greats in the straight jazz camp. We'd had Wynton Marsalis reopen the club, and we'd had Branford, his brother, and other greats, Chicho Valdez from Cuba, and many other great artists. But Jeff is sort of on that level. I think he's considered, if you go back to the 1960s and the kind of British blues invasion, he's one of the three biggies with Clapton and Page.
Gotcha.
You say Clapton, Page, and Jeff Beck, and actually the aficionados. If your average guitar head would probably plump for Beck over those three, because he was the most innovative. He went much more into the kind of fusion jazz world, the scales that he used, all the rest of it. He kept innovating, and he relentlessly resisted the mainstream, even though he could have had that.
Right. See, I think what you just
much more of a cult name,
Yeah. What you just outlined there is something that I find so interesting about your job, because you need to be you kind of have your finger on the pulse of what's going on in a number of different scenes, because you at Ronnie's you serve a really diverse audience, because you have the kind of old jazz heads that know that were around in the 50s and 60s and know what Ronnie's used to be, and they want it to be a certain way. And then you have the kind of middle people that are looking for a classy night out, and then you have the youngsters who are getting back into jazz and looking for people like Ezra and Kamasi Washington. And I've been to some of the gigs that you promoted where you told everyone to move the tables out of the way. That Hypnotic Brass gig was was huge.
Brass,
it was amazing. And then people like Prince have played at Ronnie's when you were there. You kind of brokered that. And how do you keep track of all the scenes? Do you read a lot of music press, or do you just listen to a lot of music, or how does that work?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I should say it's more than just me booking the club. There is a committee that books the main acts. So there's actually 5 of us that get together to discuss the main acts once a week, and they're never
allowed to be in the same room at the same time. They're 5
yeah.
The formula.
We all hate each other's guts. yeah. No, I think I've said this before, apologies to anyone that's heard me say it before, but I think for any arts institution, it's helpful to have more than one person booking the place, because then you temper each other's indulgences, you get more influences going. So, for instance, one of the 5 is Paul Pace, who you may know. He books the Spice of Life Jazz Club, and he has, I think it would be fair to say, you wouldn't mind me saying, he has a bit more of a traditional jazz leaning. I'm probably spending more time looking at the contemporary scene coming through, and the other 3 have their own little pockets of influence. So number one, it's not just one person, which is very helpful. because otherwise you just end up with one person's taste. You end up with a venue with one person's taste, and they're being lent on by their mates to get gigs, and very quickly your programming becomes the same and the same. So that's one thing. And then it's just, I mean, in terms of just keeping on top, I mean, it's maintaining a healthy curiosity for what's out there. You know, I listen to a lot of radio shows, SoundCloud, Bandcamp. You know, take recommendations, speak to musicians like yourself. You know, what are you listening to at the moment? What live gigs have you been to? Who have you been really impressed by? You know, I could, you know, ask you a question. You know, what's your favorite 3 gigs of the year? And you know, maybe 2 of those artists I won't have heard before. So go and check those out.
Right.
And of course, you know, we're in a privileged position that people send us music, people send us artists, and agents get in touch and say, have you heard this band? And we live in the modern day. You know, the digital technology that we have, we can watch a YouTube clip and within 30 seconds know if someone's for real or not. You know.
Yeah.
I heard you mention I think it was Jazz Kaiser you had on your show.
Yeah. What a great drummer. Great person.
She's wicked. And you were talking about Anderson .Paak briefly. And, you know, the thing that got me into Anderson, like I'm sure millions of others, was that Tiny Desk gig. You see
it's
that.
Just legendary, man.
Instantly, you're hooked, aren't you? You're just like, he drums and raps and sings. You know, and the same with so many artists. So that's a great advantage that we have in the modern day. You can cover a lot more ground.
Well, we have a full track from a band that we hope maybe you'll consider at some point to play at Ronnie Scott's. This is Kansas Smitty's again, featuring Reese Lewis singing a track with us from the last time we played at the club. And Nick, you got us on for this show, I remember, and it was because Archie Shepp was supposed to play, and he couldn't play. So we were really happy to step in, and we got a couple of awesome tracks with Reese. Now this one is a cover of a Sam Cooke version of Exactly Like You, which is an old jazz standard, but it's kind of a hipped up version. So check this one out.
Beautiful.
I know why I waited, know why I've been blue, 'cause I've been praying for someone, baby, exactly like you. Why should we spend money on a show or two? No one does these love scenes, baby, exactly like you. You make me feel so grand, I wanna give this world to you. You seem to understand each foolish little dream I'm dreaming of, the schemes I'm scheming. Now I know my mother told me to be true. She meant me for someone, baby, exactly like you. Just like you, baby, just like you. Mama made me for someone, exactly like you. I know why I waited, know why I've been blue, 'cause I've been praying for someone, baby, exactly like you. Why should we spend money on a show or two? No one does these love scenes, baby, exactly like you. You make me feel so grand, I wanna give this world to you. You seem to understand each foolish little dream I'm dreaming and the schemes I'm scheming. Now I know my mother told me to be true. She meant me for someone, baby, exactly like you. feel so grand. I wanna give this world to you. You seem to understand each foolish little dream I'm dreaming and the schemes I'm scheming. Now I know I'm murder, so me to be true. She meant me for someone, baby, exactly like you. Just like you, baby, just like you. Mama made me for someone, exactly like you. Just like you, baby, pretty just like you. Mama made me for someone exactly like you.
Reese Lewis! Reese Lewis, give it up for him! He's got a new single up on Spotify. Go listen to it now. Reese Lewis. And we're back live at 5. That was the Kansas Smitty's House Band with Reese Lewis, exactly like you. When did you find out that Reese Lewis was your brother, Nick?
Great bombshell. I haven't seen him in 25 years.
Well, you see, just before we cut back in, just before we cut back in from the clip, Nick asked me if I was more of a Larry King guy or a Graham Norton guy, and since I just presented him with that question, I think the answer is clear that I'm a Jerry Springer guy. What? He's my brother? And then you just smash a chair over his head, you know. No, Reese and Nick are not brothers as far as they know. So anyway, all that being said, what kinds of things have you gotten up to at Ronnie's in the last few years that have really kind of, what I perceive, pushed the club into like a kind of more modern direction, a new direction that's separate just from being, a live music venue where people go see gigs?
Yeah, sure. Happy to talk about that. You're slightly breaking up. Am I sounding okay?
There's a little bit of lag, but
okay.
Yeah.
All right, we're okay, are we?
Yeah.
Cool. Last few years I've just, going back to the sort of moving through different job roles there, I've been able to, one of the great blessings, I've been able to move into more exclusively just programming the music, and leave some of the other things behind, which has freed up a lot of bandwidth, as it were. So I've just been doing stuff that I feel organically is the right thing to do to keep the place moving forward, because it's that great Woody Allen quote, isn't it? It's, what he says about relationships. A relationship's like a shark; it's got to be constantly moving forward or it dies. And so, you could say the same thing about a music institution or jazz music. It's a representation of now. It's not a representation of somebody's idea of take the A train or whatever it is. Right. So how to keep it relevant to young audiences, because 75-year-old jazz fans won't be there in 25 years. So what are you doing to future-proof yourself? So I just got to thinking sort of organically, let's think about artists that have jazz within their music but aren't necessarily just jazz, So to coin a couple of names, let's invite Tom Misch and let's invite Jordan Rakai and let's invite Hypnotic Brass Ensemble to come and do late shows. Let's invite Hiatus Coyote, because there's this fantastic new recent wave, of brilliant artists that are undoubtedly jazz musicians, Thundercat and the LA scene, the Massies and the Flying Lotus and all those guys. There's a fantastic scene. So why wouldn't you tap into that? It makes total sense to do that. If you can. I mean, you guys, yourselves, you've had Lewis Cole down at your bar, which I think is a brilliant booking.
Yeah, absolutely. It's important to kind of broaden the lens, of what it is. But I think the other things that you've kind of, that I see you having done, and I mentioned one earlier, is kind of, using those late shows to push the tables to one side and change it from being, a kind of a 30 plus cocktail bar to being a kind of, 20-year-old dance club. It's a very different thing. But then you also kind of you moved into the live streaming realm with must have been about 3-4 years ago. And I know most recently you had Ashley Henry on the live stream and had something like 20,000 hits, right?
Yeah.
How did you get, that's a huge achievement. What was your kind of inspiration there? I mean, I know a lot of organizations are doing it, but I think you guys were probably the first in London to kind of get, such a, high def streaming setup. Why do you think that's going to be, the future? Or?
Well, certainly for the foreseeable as far as the lockdown goes, if we're allowed to. It's great when people are at home. Why wouldn't you do that? Ashley was due to play 3 shows at Ronnie's that week. So we just reached out to him and said, do you fancy coming to do a live stream? We might be able to set up some kind of, if you want to set up a donation link, let's see what happens. In the end, it was I think we raised £3,000.
So cool. It's fantastic.
Which is a decent gig fee,
Yeah, exactly. It's amazing.
Not to mention, I just think it's crucial for businesses and arts organizations to maintain a presence during this time and to be seen to be reaching out and trying to help, because musicians are some of the most in a tough spot, as it were. So that was brilliant to do. But I mean, obviously the night that we did Ashley was the night that Boris announced the no more than 2 in a crowd thing, because you guys have been doing live music streams, hadn't you? And then you changed it.
Yeah. Well, it didn't feel right to ask people to come in and play in a confined space. So but I mean, it's an amazing way to connect with people and to get music to them and get jazz to them. And this is kind of I think the best substitute we've found. But anyway, there's the other thing that you've done with Ronnie's is getting the club's name out into the rest of London. So because you do stuff out into the rest of the world, I guess, because you do stuff at Wilderness Festival, you do stuff in Switzerland, you do stuff in Spain, you do stuff at Alexandra Palace. So what was the kind of thought behind that? Just getting the brand out. I think he's frozen.
I think we've lost him temporarily.
No, we've lost him in Finsbury Park.
Should we play a tune before?
Yeah, we'll hold on that question, and we'll play another Smitty's live track from Ronnie. This one is
in my side. You're the only thought in my mind. I should know how to let go. You're the thorn in my side forever. Oh, you're the stain on my skin. You're a game I'll never win. I should try to leave you behind, but you're the thorn in my side. I step over shadows of you, but there's so many there I struggle to move. You eclipse any hope that I find. You're a darkness I'm helpless to leave behind. I thought the time was a sure remedy, but the pain won't get more to me. Whoa, baby, it's you. You're a heart I can't breach. You're a note I'll never reach. I should try to leave you behind. you're the thorn in my side. What? Shadows of you, so many there I struggle to move. You eclipse any hope that I find. You're in darkness I could leave behind. I thought the time was a sure remedy, but the pain won't get bored of me. Oh no, 'cause baby, it's you. You're a stain on my skin. You're a game I'll never win. I should try to leave you behind. You're the thorn in my side forever. Let me go, leave me be. Can't you see that you're killing me? Let me go, leave me be. Can't you see that you're killing me? Let me go, leave me be. Can't you see that you're killing me now? Let me go, leave me be. Can't you see that you're killing me, killing me now? You're the thorn in my side.
Rhys Lewis.
That was Rhys Lewis and Kansas Smitty's. Kansas Smitty's in that video was Adrian Cox on clarinet, Malo Mazuri on trumpet, Joe Webb on piano, Ferg Ireland on bass, Dave Archer on guitar, and Will Cleesby on drums. That concert was in January of 2019, actually quite a while ago. And it was a lot of fun. It was cool to get those videos today from Ronnie Scott's and kind of remember the memories. We've lost Nick from the live chat, but we wanted to thank him for coming on. He's had a computer malfunction, and also just to mention to check out the program at Ronnie Scott's. He was saying before that when regulations lighten, they're going to probably try to live stream some gigs again. He also has a radio show once a week on Soho Radio, so check that out. And the other thing he gave us today was our record of the day, which is Freddie Hubbard's Hub Tones, which is right here, I think. Darcy's just put it there, but one day, one of these days, he's going to put it here, and he's not going to tell me. I'll just be doing that. But we want to thank you again for tuning in. Remember to send this link around to friends that you think would enjoy the show. And it would really help us as well if you subscribe to our YouTube channel. It makes a big difference for us. So thanks again. This has been Live at 5, and we'll see you tomorrow for Archive at 5, where we dig out the best from the Smitty's vault. So we'll see you then. Thank you so much. See ya. Thanks again for listening to Live at 5. Remember to subscribe to this channel
and click on the link in the description to see where you can donate, sign up for a Smitty's membership, or buy our records and merch. See you tomorrow. Thanks again.